Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters in That podcast. I'm your host, Brian. Today, welcome a special guest from the land up top of the U.S. right there. It's our boy, Ben Rusch. How you doing today, brother?
Really well, thanks. Thanks for having me on the show.
No worries. And just for the audience, can you tell them which part of Canada you're hailing from?
Right in the absolute center of North America, it's a city called Winnipeg.
It's cold this time of the year, like a different version of Siberia.
Yeah, we're even colder than Siberia right now. We're sitting at minus 26 right now as we speak.
He's a brave man of the north right there. He's totally dishing it out. Yeah. That's good to hear. I guess, how you been recently? What's new?
I'm doing really well. What's new is I'm currently working on a new Neuroshock record called Mechanical Empath, and work's coming along nicely. When the weather is really cold as it is, it's kind of an incentive to stay indoors and get to work on my music and stuff. I took summer off just because it was so nice, and summers up here in Canada, where I live in particular, are kind of brief. They're really hot, they're really wonderful, but when it's so nice outside, I tend to spend my days outdoors in the sun and enjoying the heat, going kayaking and whatnot. But when it gets down to minus 26, it's even too cold to go cross-country skiing, and I prefer to be a real wuss and hang out in my basement and make weird noises.
That's when you know he's got a musician, and it's just more than a hobby in that case. So, I was going to say, just walk outside the door and immediately freeze, like, he froze in place. So, anyway. So, I guess how is Winnipeg this time of the year outside of the cold? I guess everyone always chilling indoors, or they try to do some fun activities outside.
We do tend to get outside. It's not often it gets this cold for any length of time. So what we like to do in Winnipeg is a personal preference thing. I like to go cross-country skiing, like I mentioned, but I also like to go bar crawling a little bit, like to pubs and stuff. We've got a lot of great craft breweries in the city. Like to have friends over, and I'm making more friends in the music community in Winnipeg here, which is really nice. So there's a couple of other electronic music weirdos like myself out there. Primary Phase Principle and Lost Cause Industry and Desperate Plain Symphony are three other guys out there that we have been trying to get together. I got a couple of the other guys to come down to my studio here, hang out, and talk about this and that, and see where we're going musically and all that kind of thing. But it's one of those things that's nice to do when it's really cold out, and I hate being cold. That's why I live in Winnipeg.
I would say we're chilling in the igloo. That's how we do it. So, yeah. Is it bar crawling? I thought it was always bar hopping, because I thought we're always one to the other.
So. Maybe it's a Winnipeg thing. When we do bar crawling, I think it's because we're much more serious about the drinking, and so you're not in any condition to hop anywhere, so it's usually a crawl.
I would say, actually, the only sports team you have is the Winnipeg Jets, right?
No, we got the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, if you follow Canadian Football League. And we've got a basketball team called the Sea Bears, and a baseball team called the Goldeyes. But I'm not really a sports guy. I'm more of a science fiction nerd, so I'll be watching TV like Star Trek or Star Wars or something anyway, when everybody else is watching the game.
Everyone would just point at you, be like, nerd. So,
yep.
I'd be like, I'm proud to be one. So,
I can't help it. I when I was younger, I used to get into sports quite a bit, but when I was getting into my mid to late teens, I was more interested in cars, music, smoking cigarettes, and staying up all night. So I lost interest in sports because I couldn't keep it up anymore, because I was coughing half the time from smoking, and dead tired because I was up all night. So I guess I was bred to be part of the musician's creed, I guess, more than sports.
Something like that. I don't know. Like, it was always a habit back then. I think even in the 80s, maybe some part of the 90s, where everyone and their grandmother was like smoking a cigarette. So.
Yeah, that's totally true. That's totally true. I don't smoke anymore, and the smell, I find it revolting. But I remember walking into a house, like going to a friend's place, and there'd be this blue cloud right about hip level that was like a strata of this, mist in the house. As soon as you walked in, it was just a wall of cigarette smoke. It was unbelievable back in the day.
The Canadian mist, if we wanted to call it that.
Yeah, that.
Okay. But on a serious note, congratulations for giving up cigarettes. It's good to have you along here a little bit longer. So, and also keep up the good project here with Neuroshock. So, yeah. But Ben, welcome to my podcast right here. The way it's going to work is it's going to ask you some questions. Let's get to know the man behind the music, as well as who he is as the individual and musician as well here too. So, are you ready, mate?
I am ready.
All right. We'll start here with the first one right here. So, tell us a little about yourself. I guess, who are you? And how did you become a musician?
Well, I started Neuroshock about 3 years ago when my old band, which was a progressive rock band of all things, came to an end because of COVID. We had just finished throwing together a record called The Demon Haunted World, which was a tip of the hat to Carl Sagan's book of the same title. The Demon Haunted World, Science as a Candle in the Dark, was the title of the book. And as we were writing material for The Demon Haunted World, we found that a lot of the lyrical themes and stuff kind of dovetailed in with what Carl was writing in his book. So we're all ready to wrap up and finish mixing and all that kind of thing. It was December of 2019 at the time. I was a drummer in the band and like a co-producer of the record. And so it's like, okay, guys, we got the record done. Let's press some CDs, and then I'll start getting the ball rolling to do a bit of a tour to promote the record and that. So as we're starting to make phone calls and shoot out emails for this and that to get some kind of promo happening for the Demon Haunted World, COVID hit, and so it was yellow alert. It was like, geez, maybe we're not going to get out as much as we thought and whatever. And then by March, it was full lockdown and we couldn't even get together to jam. So COVID marked the death knell of the band because we just couldn't get together and do anything. And what happened in the interim between lockdown and the time when people were able to get out of the house again and start doing their thing, my bass player's health was starting to get a little bit sketchy. Like he had sciatic problems, and so he couldn't stand up for long periods of time. And he would he continues to smoke. He smokes a lot, and so his throat was giving him a lot of trouble too. He's older than I am, and so he was having all these difficulties. And so we tacitly ended the band. It was kind of a de facto end of the band. We're a three-piece band. My guitar player Basil, he ended up starting or joining some kind of a Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne tribute band. There's two of them. He's playing keyboards for the Ozzy thing and guitar for the Sabbath thing. So he was happy as a bug in a rug doing his thing with that. And as a young guy, I was playing in cover bands for forever. And I didn't want to go back to playing classic rock at the end of COVID and at the end of my previous band called Providence with the Demon Haunted World record. I didn't want to reform it and pursue that anymore. I was looking for something different. And so while we were still not coming together because of, it wasn't like a hard lockdown, but it was kind of like social distancing, I found myself in this studio with all this junk behind me and not really much of a clue how to use it. But I wanted to know how to use it, but because I had synthesizers laying around, guitars, drum kits, like everything you could possibly want to make any kind of noise you want, it's sitting here. And it's like, well, I'm not really sure how to use any of this, because when my bass player, who was like the audio engineer, were doing the recording for the Demon Haunted World, I was busy sitting in the back chatting with my guitar player, drinking beer, wine, hanging out, and not really trying to make any effort to learn how to use the gear. So that was my bad. So I took it upon myself to start playing around with it. Say, like, how hard can it be, right? So if it doesn't come with an owner's manual, it should be fairly intuitive. So I open up the DAW and start looking at all the tracks and looking at VSTs and all this kind of thing. And I found it at first a bit overwhelming. I thought, oh man, this is going to be a bit much. So my bass player Todd, who was our sound guy, as I mentioned, he moved to Prince Edward Island. It's a little island off our east coast. So he's living on this island right now. And so I sent him a note. I said, Todd, like, we got all this stuff down here. I really want to use it. If I start noodling around with it, will I break anything? Because we had all of our tracks, all the stuff was still in there, and I didn't want to destroy anything. You know, it's like, don't press this button, because if you do, our album is gone forever. All the masters are gone, erased, and goodbye. So he said, no way, man. Like, you're not going to break anything. Go in there and start playing around. So I did, and I really caught the bug for it, because like I found that I could put one of these synthesizers into the DAW and start adding effects and then overdub that and whatnot. And so I'm not a keyboard player, but I absolutely love synthesizers. So I start noodling around on all these synths and stuff like that. And at the time, I also had in the studio a Roland JX3P and a Juno 106 and a DX7, like all these classic analog and digital early synthesizers from the 80s that I was familiar with, because I learned how to sound design using those machines. So I'm picking around on those things and making weird sounds and trying to throw it together in some kind of a song or other. And so I thought, wow, this is fantastic. So the very first tune I wrote was called Resurrection Machine, under the name Neuroshock. And for me, it marked a sort of rebirth. Resurrection Machine was my musical rebirth from basically grieving the death of my previous band because of COVID and all the other things that happened. You know, I was sitting in my basement moping and thought, this is my resurrection machine. So so I started writing this kind of quasi-gloomy, you know, science fiction thing, because being a science fiction nerd, it's not going to have a sports reference. It's going to have a sci-fi reference more often than not. But I found some samples that I thought was really appropriate. And I nicked them off of the film Alien 3, where Bishop is an android busted into bits, saying that you know, he doesn't want to be rebuilt because he'll never be top of the line again, and he'd rather be nothing. And to me, that line in the film was kind of poignant, because it was kind of how I was feeling, like run over by the bus kind of thing with COVID and no band anymore. It was just me hanging out in the basement doing this thing, but. I also found it really quite liberating, because at that time I was able to basically forge my own path and produce it how I wanted, engineer it how I liked it. As a deaf drummer from drumming for years and years, like trying to mix it and master it, that was a challenge. It still is, because my hearing is blasted out of my head. I have trouble hearing. So if my mixes sound like crap, I come by that honestly, not through a lack of, you know, poor skills or anything. I've got all the gear I need to do a good mix. I just sometimes can't hear it, I guess. So maybe I should hire somebody. But anyway, that's kind of the long and short of where I came to be where I am now, kind of thing. And so I've been releasing singles for the longest time. Like after I released Resurrection Machine, the second single I released was I think it was Memory Oxide, which was more of a poppy kind of a tune. It had more of a synth pop vibe to it, but it also had a bit of gloom to it. You know, like all my tunes have sort of a melancholy to them, or either melancholy or a punch in the face is usually what it is. And it speaks to where my head was at during the time for a lot of the stuff that I wrote, like especially for my first record, The Reactance Bias. I'd just been shit-kicked with life. My dad passed away. My mom got cancer. I lost my job. My cat died. I should have been writing country music, really. You know, if I had a tractor and it crapped out, you know, it'd be perfect. But so I was in a really bad headspace. I can laugh about it now, but I was in a terrible, terrible headspace. And so I found writing the music that came out of my head that eventually found its way onto The Reactance Bias was really cathartic for me, just sort of as a release, you know, as a painter would paint a gloomy painting to express how he feels. You know, somebody would listen to my record and say, man, you better send him a get well card, because he's down and out and sad and pissed off at the same time. So
Get a whole big bale chunk of symphony letters. So yeah.
exactly, right? So I released a bunch of these singles, and eventually I found that I had enough singles that I could probably throw them together with a couple of other tracks and call it a record, because I really enjoyed the idea of a record, but for a guy just starting out, it made more sense to release singles as sort of a calling card onwards going. Otherwise, it would have been probably a year or more before I was between the time I started recording and the time that I wanted to have a record, or have something out there for somebody to listen to. So I released about, 6, 7, 8 singles, and then eventually I packaged them onto a record with these new tracks and called it The Reactance Bias. Immediately after that, in February, after that December that I released it, The Reactance Bias, I released Oblivion 1981. And the idea behind that was these were outline tracks that didn't quite fit the vibe of The Reactance Bias because they had more of an 80s feel to it, but I had unresolved teen angst issues that I wanted to address using this record anyway. You know, loneliness as a teen. Like, I was always an outsider, just a weirdo. You know, most people, went the other way when I would walk down the school aisles and that kind of thing. So, there's that friggin' weirdo again, and so anyway, I put some of those ideas onto lyrics and stuff like that. Like the track 1981, the title track of the EP, it speaks to me as a young kid, and I was an Air Force brat. My dad was in the Canadian Air Force, and we had been posted from this place and that place every couple of years. Yep, off we go. And so our last posting in the I guess it would have been 1979. Like, Dad moved there. And it was kind of neat because it was Nova Scotia, and it was like we were on a seaside, and it's kind of cool. And then in 1981, we moved to see a Canadian Forces Base, Shiloh, Manitoba, which is about 200 kilometers away from where I am right now in Winnipeg. So we went from a maritime climate where there was seaside, trees, rocks, streams, and niceness to flat out prairie in the middle of the winter. And I'm looking at my dad, and if you read the lyrics to 1981, I'm saying, like, I can't breathe in this green box. And the green box I'm singing about is Dad's 1974 Buick LeSabre, which was green in color, which is what he drove from Nova Scotia to Shiloh, Manitoba in the middle of the winter. And as we left this kind of treed area out by Kenora, Ontario, and started going into Manitoba proper, the trees kind of ended all of a sudden, and it was just like we're on the moon, right? So I'm looking around this way and that way, and it's just snow blowing across the highway, snow as far as the eye can see, and it was bitterly cold. It was like minus 33 with a minus 40 wind chill, and it's like, Dad, what have you done? Where are we? Did we move to the moon? Right? It was unbelievable. So those kind of feelings of despair, probably exaggerated because I was a kid, but still interesting to reflect back on it and write about it as an adult through a grown-up's eyes, to look back at that and kind of laugh to myself in a way, and in a way not laugh at it, that holy crap, where have you taken us? Where are we, and what are we doing here? And can we ever leave this place? So, yeah, that was those two records. And so what I'm working on right now, the Mechanical Empath, moves away from catharsis and moves more towards a little bit of maybe social commentary and technological commentary, talking a little bit about AI, talking a little bit about internal conflict with oneself, and some other obscure concepts that I haven't quite gelled yet. But Mechanical Empath, the title track of the record, which I'm working on currently, refers to this concept where a chat bot becomes your therapist, right? So basically, you're having the problems that I had back in the day when I was looking for catharsis from the reactance bias, talking to a machine and hoping that it understands me and gets me, and all these programmed responses are coming through, and the character, either it's me or the person using the chat bot, therapy AI 2000, is getting all this advice and stuff like that to sort out his life, but there's actually nobody there listening to him and giving a crap where he's coming from at all. So that's kind of the vibe of the record so far.
I'll say that's a pretty extensive story right there. And actually, as soon as you said you're a guitar player, went to like a Black Sabbath Ozzy Osbourne tribute, was he forced to always go, Sharon?
The dog shat on the antique carpet, Sharon!
Who pissed on my fucking carpet? That fucking bastard. So yeah.
Ozzy, not the ham!
Sharon, what are you doing to me here? So, hope he's doing okay, actually. My dad didn't really believe he was on the radio the other day when he was talking with Billy Morrison. So, not to say what he does,
Ozzy, I love Ozzy.
Oh yeah,
But for the record, I'm not a guitar player. I have a guitar, and I've been trying to teach myself, and I'm getting better, but I still suck, and I'm still learning. I'm by trade a drummer, so I'm neither a guitar player, bass player, keyboard player, or like all that stuff is new to me. My shtick is drumming, but I kind of like to enter into my discomfort zone from time to time. Actually, I made a 24-hour job out of it, it seems.
So you do tell. Actually, what instrument did you start with drums back in school? Or I guess when did you first start doing drums?
Yeah, I started doing drums in a high school band. Like when I was still living in Nova Scotia, the military base had what they called personnel married quarters, and they weren't houses, they were trailers. So I was a trailer park trash son of an Air Force guy at a radar station in the middle of nowhere. And one of the kids in this trailer managed to have a small Pearl 5-piece drum kit put into this tiny, tiny, tiny bedroom with his bunk bed shoved off to the side. So he had to crawl around his drum set and get in there and get to sleep and do his homework and all that. But I was so impressed that my friend had this kit there, and he was actually able to kick out some pretty cool beats and stuff. And he was, I would say, even at the time, he was a committed student. Like at the time, I was a goof. I still am a goof, but like I was a total goof. It's like, hey man, why don't you just bash them out, and do Peter Criss like Kiss, and all that kind of stupid shit. And but he was very studious. He had music, like drum music. He was like 12 years old or whatever at the time. He had sheet music for the drum kit, and he was following along, and he was doing his thing. It's like, whoa, you're really serious. You're really good. I wish I could do that, but without reading the music. So anyway, he got me the drum bug, but there was no way I could afford a drum kit at the time. I was too irresponsible to get a job to make enough money, and if I had made the money, I didn't have the discipline to hang on to the cash to save it till I had enough money to buy a drum kit. It was like, wow, I got some money. Yes, I'm going to buy some smokes and a 6-pack and hang out with my friends and burn a tank of gas going here and there. Oh yeah, and I'm going to get a drum set one of these days, right? So all that chaos didn't serve me well until I guess I was probably 16 or 17 when I bought my first drum kit, which was a pile of junk. It was a Frankenstein kit that had Ludwig bits, it had Slingerland bits, I had a Rogers snare drum, and like an assortment of other like total incompatible crap that was just kind of jury-rigged together. And that was my drum kit. And it was like all the finish was removed of each of the shells, and it was painted like this battleship gray color with like trem clad or something. It was just crap, total crap. But it was my kit. I bought it for $350, and I was super proud that I finally had a drum kit. And I thought, okay, now I'm ready to start rocking out. But it's like, wait a minute, you still have to buy cymbals, and they're expensive too, you dumb shit. So back to the drawing board, right? I had this kit that sounded like crap. It needed new drum heads, which costed more money yet. So it's just, okay, so I put out all this money that I couldn't afford, $350, which to me was a king's ransom. So I would cobble together these shitty cymbals that I found used from all over the place. Like some of them were cracked, some of them weren't even cymbals. They looked like a cymbal. They were made out of brass, but they sounded more like a hubcap that flew off a Mercury or something like that. And drum heads and sticks and all the rest of it was just outrageously expensive for me, and it was cutting into my cigarette budget, my gas budget, my pizza budget, right? So that was economics 101 for me, which was a bitter, bitter pill to swallow, because I just couldn't get my shit together to save money to buy a drum kit and to have the money to keep it up too, that like the maintenance part of it too, right? Like heads and sticks and all the rest of it. So that was something else. A few years later, when I was gainfully employed, I was able to buy my first drum kit, which was a Tama Rockstar kit, which made me feel like a rock star. It was gorgeous. It wasn't a Frankenstein kit. It was brand new. It was white shells. It had I put ebony heads on it. I was able to afford drumsticks, and the lowest level Paiste cymbals I could afford was, I think they were the 505 series. So I thought, man, this is the shit. This is awesome, right? So now I can get right into it. And of course, I'm looking over my shoulder, and all my other peers who are drummers, they have like Yamaha stage customs, with the Zildjian K cymbals. It's like, man, how do you afford that? It's like, get a job and save your money, you schmuck, right? So I couldn't learn those lessons, but I learned them later on. Obviously, I've got a hell of a kit now. I've got two kits now. So now I've got a Roland V kit directly behind me. You can barely see it. And then behind that, I've got a double bass drum Tama Star Classic Elite with the Babinga shells, which is absolutely brilliant. And I've got Paiste 2002 cymbals for the medals on it, and a Gibraltar rack around it. Plus a couple of gongs, because we're in a prog rock band. And the kit just got stupidly big. Which I still grudgingly moved it from place to place when we were gigging and all that kind of thing. It was a big kit, but I found that if you assemble it into bits, and then when it was your turn to go on stage, you could just cobble it together and go. But I found that when I was gigging with the prog band, when the sound guy saw the drum set, he would cross his arms like this and say, "You better fucking play all this stuff. You better," right? And so I said, "Yeah, man, like I don't want to never piss off your sound guy, right?" So I said, "Yeah, man, I promise I'll do my utmost to play everything." And I did. Like the music we were doing was kind of in some ways King Crimson-ish in a way. King Crimson kind of Genesis, kind of Pink Floyd-ish. It was weird, a bit of Rush in there too. It was weird music, but the big kit suited it, and I used everything on the kit. So that was that. That was my drumming tale. But as I mentioned earlier, I also was very much interested in synthesizers. So when I had a bit of cash kicking around, a little extra cash, when the old synthesizers from the 80s started coming down in price, believe it or not, I was able to buy a Juno 106 for about $200. And now they're going for $3,000. A 30, 40-year-old synthesizer going for like $4,000. It's nuts. So anyway, I bought this synthesizer, and it's like, wow, this is the cat's meow. It's got the all the sliders on it that I'm used to using, like the attack, sustain, decay, the ADSR levers, what I call them. Your DCOs are lined up. Your voltage controlled oscillators are all set up. Your filters, everything's got a knob on it. Everything's got a slider. It's perfect. No menus you got to get down into. You know what I mean? Like everything was. So I had a great time with that until I found like I'm not a keyboard player. I'm a drummer, and I'm gigging sort of semi-regularly now. And as luck would have it, my Paiste 505 hi-hats had the biscuit, and it was time to buy new hi-hats. So I had some money, but not that much money. So I ended up selling my Juno 106 to a friend of mine for what I paid for it, $200. And I was able to afford, with the money from that synthesizer and a little bit of money that I actually managed to save, I was able to go out and buy a pair of Paiste signature medium hi-hats, which I have to this day. And to this day, my friend, my high school friend, still has that Juno 106 with my name and little stickers on the back of it. So I said, you know, possession is 9/10 of the law. It's got my name on it, so you should bring it back here. But he was kind enough to lend it to me when I was recording Resurrection Machine. So when you hear some of those synth pads on Resurrection Machine, it's actually the Juno 106 that I'm using there.
That's pretty cool. And actually, we actually talk about that song here too. The one he actually sent to me too, and I have to actually pull up my notes. But here's a two-parter here, right? First off, how did you come up with the name Neuroshock? And talk about bacteriophage combat. So that's a song you sent over to me. So let's hear the story about that.
So Neuroshock came out. I actually invented that name in I think around 1999 or year 2000. I was between bands, and as I mentioned, I was very much interested in making music with synthesizers. Back then, there was no such thing as a digital recording on a computer. You had a Tascam Porta 2 or a little cassette multi-tracker or something like that. You couldn't afford the big reel-to-reel thing that proper studios were having. And like I said, I was a schmuck. I didn't have the money to do that kind of thing. And so, what am I going to do? But I was interested in doing that, so I came up with the name Neuroshock. I wrote a whole bunch of lyrics, and I had great ideas, but absolutely no way to execute these ideas. So that kind of went into the freezer for a while. It went into cryostasis. The whole idea of Neuroshock, everything just went away, closed the lid, put a padlock on it, and off I went doing classic rock in the bar circuit in Winnipeg and Brandon. So, yeah, that wasn't very satisfying. And then the rest of the story with the band Providence and all that. But when I came back to the studio, I needed a name for this new project and I thought Neuroshock. I came up with that. I don't think anybody's using it really, so I did a search on Apple Music, do a search on Spotify, and there's a track or two called Neuroshock or that kind of thing. But there was no artist named Neuroshock, and so it was like, great, okay, I'm going to use this. I'm going to register it. It's mine, so I'm going to run with it. So it just sounded kind of cool, the name Neuroshock. And I was listening at the time, like in the 1999, 2000, early 2000s. I was listening to an awful lot of Frontline Assembly, and the name Neuroshock was evocative of one of these bands that I thought was really cool for me to listen to, which was Frontline Assembly. So it's like, yeah, Neuroshock. It's got that vibe. It's got that edgy, dystopian, kind of matrixy kind of vibe to it, which I was after at the time. So that's where the band name came from. And bacteriophage combat, that's a little tougher to explain, but yeah, not really. No, bacteriophage. A bacteriophage is a virus that finds its food on bacteria. So you have these two microorganisms eating each other. So as a human being, you can become very ill with a bacteriological infection. And the idea with a bacteriophage, if you're unable to treat this infection with traditional medicines, and I'm not a doctor here, I want to make that disclaimer right now. You would introduce a bacteriophage that would eliminate the bacteria, because it's like, hey, there's a buffet of bacteria here and I'm going to eat it. So that's what bacteriophage does. But what it meant to me as a songwriter was people who have a battle within themselves. They're fighting ghosts, they're fighting demons, they're fighting something in their past, that something's haunting them or whatever. And so that's where the idea of bacteriophage comes from. It's the character in the song is experiencing some kind of issue with his past, with his present, and he's at war with himself, and nobody knows how it's going to turn out. And you when you read the lyrics or hear the lyrics, the battle lines are drawn here. Annihilation is my new creed. All these lines, like sort of a war of annihilation within himself, because that's what's going on. So that's where the song title came from.
Let's say you're not a doctor, but he sure acts like one. They'll be like, man, this guy is smart. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
I made a goof in school, but I did read the books, and I never put the books down at the end of the day.
Nope, that's so he was the nerd of the school. So yeah, so
Yep.
that's pretty cool. And just I guess you mentioned about COVID here a little bit here too. So, and I know you mentioned about it more so the music, because I know it was the that progressive band you were a part of. But I guess how bad was COVID for you personally and family wise?
The death in the family was my dad passed away, and that was that's what you meant, right? Yeah, it was very tough for me. My dad and I had a complicated relationship. He wasn't the warm and fuzzy, let's go play baseball kind of dad. He was interested in other things, mostly alcohol and that kind of thing. He was never physically abusive, but he could be verbally abusive, and to a young kid. And I was a sensitive young kid. I guess I still am a sensitive fellow. It just hurt terribly to have him say some of the things he said. And so when he passed away, it wasn't relief, and it wasn't. I'm not sure if it was sadness either, but it was very emotional for me, and it was a big void, because he was a larger in life figure in my life. And then in the same year, my mom got cancer, and so that was difficult. My godmother died. It was just, and we're talking about a span of a few months, and it was incredibly tough for me to countenance all of that happening at the same time. And so that kind of plunged me into quite the doldrums, where I didn't really feel like there was any escape from bad things, but I did manage to pull myself out of the sewer anyway. So here I am making weird music. A survivor.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that there, mate. So I don't know. It was really that bad. Thanks. But I guess how strict were they in terms of the COVID policies? I know you mentioned the 6 feet apart, that whole social distancing. I guess they're pretty strict in terms of keeping everyone on a curfew or something in Winnipeg.
Yeah, we had a lockdown. It was tougher for people who were still working. Like I said, my job came to an end, not because of COVID, but because of corporate restructuring. But I was comfortable enough that it didn't matter too much, that I could just carry on with my severance package and I'd be all right. But for me, it was very easy, because it was in the dead of winter. It was March of 2020 when the lockdown happened here in Winnipeg. And so you're basically still in the winter. So I didn't really want to go outside anyway. So I ended up watching a lot of TV. I spent a lot of time trying to sort out how all this gear in the studio worked. And it didn't affect me as much as it might have affected many other people. Yeah, you had to get used to wearing a mask and social distancing and stuff. And grocery shopping was something else. But I saw the value in it, because my mom is a senior citizen, and like some of the more crass people would say, well, it's just killing old people. It's like, well, my mom is old. Thanks, thanks for caring. So it didn't bother me that we had to do social distancing and stuff like that. But some people, as you may recall, our big chaotic protest in Ottawa that year, I think, when all the truckers went to Ottawa and just they all lost their shit and honking their horns, and it was just chaotic. It was and then it became more than that. It became more than a protest for COVID. It became a protest. Oh, you guys are Nazis. It's like we're living in a Nazi state because you're locking us in our houses and stuff like that. It's like, no, dude. It's like, and if you're going to say that, maybe you should talk to the guys that you're protesting with, especially the guy with the Nazi flag over here that is on the TV camera here. Like, everything just kind of spiraled into a big cesspool of nonsense that was very uncharacteristically. It was very un-Canadian, because we're very polite. We're very thoughtful people up here in the north. So for me to see that was, I took a bit of umbrage to it, because it's just those aren't Canadians. Real Canadians don't do that. We say sorry, and if you're pissed off about stuff, you say, hey, I'm pissed off, but you don't go, kicking in doors and yelling at people. Really, like we're a pretty civilized bunch up here for the most part. So that was a little weird when COVID hit. So it wasn't my bag, but I think my wife and I got through it unscathed, and we came out all the better for it. My mom is healthy. We all got vaccinated, and we believe in science and not conspiracy theories and goofy shit. Like we're all hardcore science empiricists. Trust the science. And I got a kick out of a lot of folks when they were saying, well, last week they were saying we can't do this, and this week they're saying that. These scientists, they're always changing their story, and it's like, well, that's the nature of science. As new data comes forth, you examine the data and you change your line of thinking, right? Instead of just saying, well, this is how we're doing it, and we're sticking to our guns, and a few more people died, but we're sticking to our guns, right? Like it's not our really way of thinking up here. And like I said, most of us are quite a bit more empirical, more critical thinking than the average Joe, I think.
That's good to hear. Actually, I was going to ask about that if you had any brushes with COVID, but that's good to hear. So, yeah. But it is good to see your mom's doing well there too, as well as you and your wife pulling through. So,
yeah, she's my mom's 81, and she walks for kilometers every day. She goes swimming. When my dad passed away, she and I did a swim-a-thon. She had just turned 79 or 80 at that period of time. We swam 1 mile, so 1.6 kilometers in a pool doing laps. And she's a cancer survivor, and I'm just a guy who doesn't get enough exercise. So I'm kind of huffing and puffing a little bit in a pool, and she's just blowing through these laps like nothing. And so I'm really happy to see that. Like she's doing extremely well, and yeah, kind of glad I got some healthy genes in me somehow.
As I say, we should sign her up for the Olympics. So
right? Yeah.
But all seriousness, good to see our guys are doing well there. So good to have you along here for the ride here too, Ben.
Thanks.
But jumping in here, this still kind of ties in with COVID, but it's more so with the music scene that's been going around in and around Winnipeg. So if there's been a whole lot more of cover and tribute bands, is that kind of the same story in your neck of the woods too, or what have you seen from your perspective for the music scene?
I don't get out a whole lot, so I don't see a lot of the music scene, but Winnipeg has always had a very vibrant music scene. And the venues are filling up again, and people are going out to see bands, and not just cover bands. Like there's so many really great original acts in Winnipeg. It makes your head spin. Everything from punk to electronica to explorations of this and that. There's even like a mariachi band of some kind, and like it's just, the list is endless. It's really, really cool to see. There's a huge amount of talented musicians in Winnipeg, and even on my street, I like my neighbors across the street from me. There's they belong to the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, so we got a world-class violinist and a world-class trumpeter or trombonist, sorry, living across the street. And 11 houses down from where I live right now, 11 houses to the east of me on the same side of the street is where Neil Young grew up. So there's a rich history in Winnipeg of musicians and musicianship and stuff like that, and dumbasses like me making weird music in their basement. Very rich tradition. But I really should make it a point of getting out more often when I'm doing my pub crawls, to get out to live music venues to see what's going on. But I'm not antisocial, but I am very much an introvert, and I do find myself peopled out after a period of time. And because my hearing is damaged, sometimes the sound pressure levels can be a bit painful for me. Speaking of which, the last concert I've been to here in Winnipeg was at a place called the Burton Cummings Theatre for the Performing Arts, and Burton Cummings was with that band, the Guess Who. It was also a Winnipeg band, like American Woman, and all those songs. That's a Winnipeg thing. That's a Winnipeg band. So anyway, at the Burton Cummings Center, just last year, I saw Frontline Assembly with Gary Newman and Ministry. And it was the Ministry was the loudest band I'd ever heard in my entire life, including Motorhead, which I was on the floor level to see, and it was extremely loud. It was brilliant. Motorhead was absolutely brilliant. They were touring their rock and roll album. It was extremely loud, and it was even described by the press at the time as a wall of sound. But Ministry at the Burt was way, way louder. It's like comparing an atomic bomb to a hydrogen bomb. Like even doing this, like it still hurt. And there's like I'm looking around and people are putting their AirPods in because it's so loud, like they're looking for some sound protection. I thought they would turn it down a bit. I don't mind a loud show, but holy crap, that was loud. So I don't know if it was me because my hearing is damaged to start with, or if it really was that loud, but I'm inclined to think it was that loud. So there's that facet with going out to concerts. I don't think I'd ever find anything quite that loud at a smaller venue. Like say, one of these venues that holds maybe 150 people, 200 people. I don't expect to find that kind of sound pressure levels, but the Burt was really loud. It was a great show, though. Really great show. It's three great bands that I really enjoy very much. I don't know a lot of Ministry's catalog, but big fan of Frontline Assembly, and I really like Gary Newman's music. So that was a win-win-win for me.
Gary Newman was part of the Cars, right? He was the front man?
No, Gary Newman wrote a song called Cars, and the band The Cars are from Boston, and the front man of that band was Rick Ocasek. Another great band, which I really, really, really like, too.
I thought it'd be one-on-one, put those together, and that's what you got, so all right.
You wanted to do it, too, for...
I was trying to make it work, so, you had the Cars, so I'm doing... And then we see a song Cars, and that's just the guy who's the front man there, so, all right. So, sorry. I just randomly guess. I don't really pay attention that much, so... But... it's good to see Winnipeg's doing good there, mate. So get out there. There's some shows. 2025 is going to be a good year. I'm going to tell you that much. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty great.
Oh, yeah. But I guess jumping into the next question here, I guess, who would you say was really a big influence? I guess, first in drumming, and I guess, do you look up to anybody in terms of the guitar, keys, and synthesizers?
For guitar, I can't say I have an influence on guitar. I have guitar heroes. One of the guitar players I have the greatest admiration for is David Gilmour from Pink Floyd. The reason why I'm such a Gilmour fan, because David is able to play guitar solos you can sing, you can vocalize them. They're so soulful and moving. Like when you think about the guitar solo for like Comfortably Numb, for example, on The Wall, it's an incredible piece of rock and roll happening right there. For drums, my influences are all over the map. My earliest drum influence would probably be Peter Criss from Kiss, because I was a kid and I wanted to be that guy in the makeup. Later on, Catman. Later on, it was John Bonham and Neil Peart from Rush. I wanted to be that guy with the big kit who could just buzz around these full roundhouse tom fills and stuff like that. I thought that was brilliant. And as I got older, I started looking more towards, offbeats and weirder things. So I got more interested in Bill Bruford's drumming from Yes and from Genesis to some extent and King Crimson. And also Jerry Marotta, who was the drummer for Peter Gabriel for a while, for introducing a lot of rhythm-intense patterns without the use of cymbals, like especially in Peter Gabriel's earlier albums. Those are really big influences for me. For synthesizer, I think hands down, my biggest synth influence would have to be Gary Newman, followed by probably Frontline Assembly and Bill Leib's synthesizer playing and stuff like that. And of course, Nine Inch Nails. I can't forget Nine Inch Nails, because what brought Nine Inch Nails to the forefront for me was the idea that here's a guy doing synthesizer music, but he's also introducing guitar and a rock and roll element to it too. So it's got like an industrial feel, a rock feel, and not a new wave feel, but sometimes it can have kind of a new feel with some of the synth sound design that he's using. So all those, thrown into a pot and simmered on low for about 5 hours, those are my influences.
And what you get is Ben Rusch from Neuroshock. So,
Yeah, that's right. A chaotic melange of nonsense.
I mean, you're humbling yourself right here. I don't want to try to rub salt on the wounds, but it's all good though. So I do ask about Neil Peart. Was he from, I guess, the province where Winnipeg is, or was he more of the eastern half of Canada?
Yeah, Neil came from Ontario, which is one province over from us. Manitoba and Ontario are connected. But Neil, his place, if you drove there from my house, would be a 2-day drive. It's about 2,400 kilometers. He lived between Toronto and Niagara-on-the-Lake in St. Catharines area. So I think later on he ended up having a place maybe in Hamilton or somewhere around there, and then he met the guys like Getty and Alex, who were from Toronto proper, and got Rush going. Yeah.
I have interviewed a good number of Canadians.
Yeah.
So actually, I interviewed a good number of Canadians who also played on drums, and actually, one of them, his name is Mike Lewis. He actually looks almost identical to you, actually, in a way. So
we all look alike up here.
Really? Just trying to remember. I think he did say he was in the Winnipeg region, but yeah, he got the hair, he's got the glasses. I don't think he had too much gray. You have to check out the interview and then see what you think, because I think you're almost like an identical twin brother or something.
Well, Winnipeg is famous for our human cloning plant. And so we just clone out drummers one after the other, and we just spread them out and see what happens.
That explains a lot. So, yeah. But in all seriousness, he was a good friend there too. So go check him out. I think you'll laugh like how identical you guys do look. So, yeah.
Cool.
But I guess let's go jump into the gear right here too. So I know you mentioned a couple of them so far, but I guess outside of the gear you got around here, what do you use for the music production?
For music production, my main piece of gear is a MIDI keyboard. It's an Arturia Keylab 61 Essential. It's a few years old. I bought it new. It's terrific. It's got 61 keys, which is perfect for me. I'm not a pianist or a keyboard player at all, so 61 keys was the exact number of keys that my old Juno 106 had, so it worked out perfectly. So most of my instruments I'm using these days are VST because they're, first of all, more stable than the old 1980s counterparts, like the Juno 106 that I had down here had a bit of a hiss in the line somewhere, even though we replaced some of the sound chips in it some years back. There was a JX3P down here that I used as well, which was borrowed, but it also had some line noise issues too. So while I love those keyboards very much for the sounds that they created, I'm using VSTs now, and I'm finding that some of the VSTs, the versions are identical or better than the original things, and I'm sure that's going to be enraging to somebody, saying, well, I've got a Moog Model D, and nothing's better than that. And it's like, well, dude, like your Moog Model D, like some of the keys are dead and these knobs and pans are noisy, and like my VST makes exactly the same sounds and without all those issues. So for VSTs, my go-to VST is something from Spectrasonics. It's called the Omnisphere 2 Power Synth. And that's basically a career in a box. It's got thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of user editable sounds. And you can sound design your own stuff on it. It's remarkable. My second go-to is a Moog Model D mini Moog synthesizer, which is VST, but it's adorable. I love it. It's got the full graphic user interface where you can turn knobs, and you can even pop off a little panel and play around with the electronics in it, which is a really nice touch. The next really big VST that I use is an Oberheim OBX-D. I've always been a fan of the Oberheim OB series, the OBX series, but I could never ever afford it. Even at the pinnacle of when I was making a decent living, to set down $12,000 for a polyphonic synthesizer was just out of this world. It's like, no way, this synthesizer costs more than a car. So yeah, exactly, ixnay on that. No, it's not going to happen. But now I have one, which is absolutely perfect because it's got all the stuff that you could possibly want, all the ADSR sliders, all the voltage control bits, like all of it is there, and I'm happy as a clam with that. I also use another Spectrasonics product called Stylus RMX. I use that to create some of the arpeggiated EDM kind of rhythms that you hear sometimes in my music. I also use the Roland V drum kit, which is right behind me when I actually get behind the kit and dial in, like the song Redacted. That's the Roland V kit. And on top of the Roland V kit is a Roland Octopad SPD 30, I think. Oh, whatever it is. It's Roland Octopad. It's really quite cool. The song Submission, the loop is me on the Octopad playing this kind of mechanical industrial kind of sound, and at the end of the tune I come in with the Roland V kit. So there's a little bit of a juxtaposition of that. Off to my side over here, I've got a Roland XV88. It's a 88 key synthesizer, which belongs to my guitar player, X of Providence. So I told him, I said, if you need it, let me know, come get it. But it's really heavy and I don't want to move it. Above that is a Korg M1, which is a powerhouse of a lot of these 90s industrial bands and stuff like that. Again, it belongs to my guitar player, Baz, X of Providence. It's not as heavy, but I like it, so he can't have it unless he threatens me. So we'll wait. Above that is a Novation Bass Station 2, which does belong to me, and I love it because not only does it have punchy bass and an arpeggiator and all that stuff, it also has, like, if you press the key, you get one, so you get a tone out of it, and you press a little harder, it activates the lower voltage oscillator. So you get some LFO happening, a little bit of tremolo or vibrato on it, and it's brilliant for soloing. So like I said, I'm not a keyboard player, but you can sound pretty cool when you got the modulation wheel happening and you got those, those touch-sensitive keys on the go too. So there's that. I've got a Mackie Onyx 1640 mixer off to the side, which is also my audio interface. It's big, it's bulky, but I didn't have to buy more gear. It was here all along, so I just run it into my iMac where I do all my recording. And to that, I've got a cheapy condenser microphone that's got phantom power, and I record vocals on that. And sometimes I just use like a Shure 57, not as 57, but whatever, the Shure microphone, the handheld sucker. I just scream into that when I'm doing, more aggressive vocals, like on Trash Head. I use that microphone, and I think for most of the vocals, I use the big condenser mic. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I'm not going to pull it out. It's big. It'll probably crash on my head if I pull it out. But that's basically what I'm using. I've got on either side of me, you can't see them because they're in front of me. I've got large home stereo speakers for when I'm mastering, so I can hear what they sound like on a high-end home stereo system. Above that, sitting on those speakers, I have studio monitor speakers that are separately powered, so I can get a clean mix, a clean sound. They're about 3 feet ahead of me, and at a perfect angle, so I can listen and do my mixing. When I'm done that, the extra piece of gear that I use is not actually in the studio at all. It's the car. So I'll put my music onto a stick or put it on an MP3 on my phone, and I'll listen to the music in the car and see how it sounds through the car stereo. And lastly, my AirPods. So I'll listen to what it sounds like on AirPods and headphones. So that's kind of, I think that's pretty much all the gear that I use. The guitar is an Epiphone Les Paul Standard. I just bought that last year. I didn't want to spend $3,000 on a Gibson Les Paul, but I wanted a Les Paul. And when I was looking at the YouTube video, they were saying, well, it doesn't have the same build quality. And it's like, well, you're right, but it's $2,000 cheaper, and it sounds pretty good, And for a guy like me starting out, that's all I needed. So I've got that, and I've got a small Fender amplifier down low, and then off to my side is another victim, but victim return from the old days when I couldn't afford gear and I had to sell it. So this is a bass guitar I bought in probably 1988 from a guy I went to university with. It's an Area Pro 2 jazz copy, a Fender jazz copy. And I sold it to my bass player in Providence because I needed money to buy a China cymbal or something. So when he moved to PEI, Prince Edward Island, I was telling you, he moved out to the island on the Canada's East Coast. He's like, do you want this? I'm like, fuck yeah, absolutely. And it was a bit worse for wear because it was stored in the basement without a case, so it had dust on it and dead bugs, and it was a shambles. Like that, all the strings had greeblies on it, just. So I took it to a guy who sets up bass guitars. He sets up guitars and says, can you resurrect this? Because it's fucked. And he took a look at it and he says, well, how much do you want to spend on it? And I said, well, I don't know, a couple $100, $300-400. He says, oh yeah, okay, no problem. So he put new strings on it. He pulled the electrics. He, sorted it all out basically and set it up. And now it sounds like something worthy of John Entwistle to play on. It sounds really quite terrific. But I'm glad I got it back because that was my first stringed instrument that I ever owned. But that crappy old bass guitar right there. So I do pick it up from time to time and start noodling around with it. But I'm waiting for the time when I feel comfortable enough to actually use some of the stuff on one of my Neuroshock recordings, which, I think is coming soon.
That's good to hear. Actually, you're describing the bass right there. It's almost going to be like a Lazarus sort of effect right there. Be like, right,
yeah.
Rise. So, yeah. This goes back from the dead.
Yeah, totally. Seems to be the story of my life lately, with Resurrection Machine, a resurrected, well, not music career, but music thing. Resurrected machines, resurrected this and that. It's all coming back. It's like some kind of zombie film here.
Except not trying to eat your brain in this case. They're working with your brain, we should say. So, yeah.
Yeah, either that or we're just going to have mushrooms popping out of our foreheads.
Actually, is that a reference to The Last of Us? We got
Yes.
I haven't played that game yet. Actually, I'm actually.
Oh yeah.
I gotta get back into doing video games. Actually, gotta do the God of War series. Gotta get back into doing that shit. So, I used to play the From Software games like Bloodborne and Souls, Dark Souls.
Cool.
So.
I'm not much of a gamer, but when I did get into I had some friends that had a console, and what I really liked of all things was car driving, like race car driving. I was actually pretty good at it, and I liked it so much that in Windsor, Canada, it's in Ontario, just across the river from Detroit. Actually, it's Windsor's weird in Ontario because Canada's north of the United States, but when you're in Windsor, when you look north, you see Detroit because of the way that geography is. So when you're looking north in Windsor, you see Detroit. I always thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, in Windsor, there's the Canadian Club distillery, and they have a brand center right on the Detroit River. And at the time, they were sponsoring some dude named Dario something or other for F2 racing, and so they had a racing simulator in the brand center. And so it's like, wow, can I give it a go? And I'm like, absolutely. So you get into this car, and it's like, oh, this is just fucking awesome. I love this shit. And of course, you have Canadian Club, right? So you're gulping on that. And then came the great experiment. You start out stone cold sober in this basically a big video game, right? And as you're drinking, how badly fucked up is my driving going to be with each successive drink, right? Like keeping the speed up, keeping the curves. And it did eventually get so bad that I was crashing into everything. But the thing was, how hard do I have to turn and drive, and how fast do I have to drive before I can actually flip my racer, which I could never manage to do. It came close a couple of times where the car just kind of leapt up like this and then came crashing down, but I could never roll it.
So you're trying to kill yourself now. That's what they're thinking. So,
because I knew I'd be resurrected.
Speaking of the devil, so yeah. It's actually interesting because I've been to Toronto a couple times. I was actually in Montreal a couple years ago.
Nice.
And
I like Toronto very much, and I like Montreal too.
I know you were saying your Canadians are pretty good, but I think with all the construction going around, I think they seem to lose their patience a lot more easily. So I had a
The
lot of
other thing
construction going on in Toronto, so yeah. I was in Montreal, and then actually a few years back I was in Vancouver. We made our way over into Calgary, and actually saw Jasper National Forest, Banff, Lake Louise. So beautiful
Nice.
scenery you Canadians got there too. So
Yeah, it's pretty terrific. We're lucky.
so and I guess let's go and jump into the challenges right here too. So I guess is Neuroshock mainly your main job, or do you kind of got a new job? Because I know you said you got laid off from your first one during COVID.
Neuroshock is my only job right now. It's all I'm doing right now. It's my thing. Yeah, so I'm very happy about that.
I guess in that case,
Votes,
I was going to say in that case, talk about the challenges you face these days as a musician, and since this is a full-time job now.
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges is just getting your music out there. As a solo artist who doesn't gig and tour or anything like that, it's particularly tough to get your message out. So I've been relying on social media to get the word out on my music and stuff like that. But it's not like I'm relying on Neuroshock to bring bread and butter into my house. So if I get really tired of spending all day on Instagram or Facebook or whatever trying to plug my music, and just yelling into the void, listen to my music, I can just walk away from it. And like if nobody listens to my music, that's fine. I enjoy making the music, and I like the music that I make, so I like to listen to my own music. But I think probably the biggest challenge is getting it out there. So with support from programs like yours and others, I'm able to reach out to a bit more of an audience, that might be interested in the weird noises that I make. I like I said, I don't consider myself an accomplished musician with keyboards and stuff. I'm a drummer, so I'm an avid hobbyist when it comes to this kind of thing. But I really, really, really like it, and I really want to see how far I can go with it, because it's something that I've really gotten into in a big, big way. Like there's not a lot of things that kind of grab me by my ears and it's like, this is what I really want to do. Neuroshock is what I really want to do, and I'm really, really enjoying it. I love it. I get excited about releases that I do. I love talking about it. I love getting the word out, and it's super nice when people listen to my music and have some really nice, kind feedback about it too. I rely on my friends and my mom to tell me that my music is weird and it sounds like something for Halloween.
At least I know they're being honest, so I mean, give them props for that. So that was the other thing too. I was trying to figure out what sort of genre kind of like branch it into, because it seems like the more independent you are, the more you tend to like mess around with like all the different genres out there too. So I guess how would you define your sort of music?
I never knew until somebody from the UK suggested that it was like industrial electro dark wave kind of stuff. So it's you can't really pinpoint it into one way or another, but there's elements of all those things in it. Like if you listen to individual tracks, you can hear a bit of synth pop, you can hear some goth, you can hear some dark wave, some old school industrial, you name it. It's all in there. But at the end of the day, it's all synthesizer music. It could be basically a lot, because a lot of my songs are kind of primitive in their structure. They come off as almost like a punk song, but with synthesizers. Like Redacted is essentially a synthesizer punk tune. Like it's very, you don't have a repeating chorus. It's just in your face. It's a punch in the face with synthesizers in a way, a gentle punch to the face, lightly smacked. And so there's that. It's a bit genre bending, and it's been suggested that tunes like Submission have a bit of a progressive rock feel to it, especially near the end, which when I took a listen to it after being told that, it was like, yeah, it does kind of have a progressive rock feel to it, but you're never far from the influences that started you off when you were younger and impressionable with, this genre or that genre of music. And I'm the victim of all kinds of genres of music that I listen to, from synth pop to new wave to industrial to progressive rock, all of it, and punk, like the whole gambit. those are my influences. So it's chaotic and schizophrenic.
And scientific too, that we wanted to say, because I know you said big. So yeah, I know you say big in science fiction. So yeah, a little bit of a darker sort of sidetrack in Star Wars kind of mixed in with this now. So yeah, it's always weird. Actually, I was just normally do like just one big category, just like industrial music. That's all we have to put down. So maybe whenever I think of like keyboards and synthesizers, but yeah.
It's helpful because I kind of prefer these kind of catch-all genres, but it's difficult when you're releasing your music and distributors kind of expect to be told what genre your music is in. It's like, well, I don't have a hot clue what genre this music is. I don't know. It's weird. Do you have a weird category? Rock, alternative, weird. I'll tick that box and call it a day. I don't know. My music has always been weird, though.
And hey, we have fun with it, so that's all that matters. So
yes.
That's cool. So I guess, does your wife tend to help out with the social media, or is it just strictly you that does all the media promotion?
Neuroshock is 100% me. Like everything from the administrative side of the music business to register with ASCAM and SOCAN, or ASCAP and SOCAN, the royalty collecting agencies, to digital distribution, to manufacturing CDs and stuff. That's all me. Video creation, all the images and branding and stuff like that, that's 100% me. So it does take a bit of time, but I have lots of time on my hands to devote to that kind of thing, unless I'm being sidetracked with really good weather.
I was like, we're open 24/7, 365 days a year. So
yeah, kind of.
I mean, you think about it too. Actually, I should say, I'm trying to think maybe the 8 to like 10 o'clock at night. I thought that would be like 14 or something. So maybe 14, 15 hours a day, 365 days a year. So makes more sense.
I lose entire days down in the studio here. I lose entire days where I'll get into the groove and I'll be like, it's getting dark. Like I've got one window. This is a basement studio, and I've got one window behind me. So I kind of know roughly what time of day it is. And of course, we're so far north that this time of year, our day, the sun rises at like 8:30 in the morning and sets at like 4:30 in the evening, kind of thing. Like it's dark all the time. But I'll see it's getting darker behind me. Like the drum kit is a little less illuminated, and it's like, holy crap, what time is it? And it's like, I spent the entire day down here, and it didn't bother me a bit, you know. Like my wife also works from home, so she'll be upstairs in her home office, and we'll have coffee in the morning, and we'll talk about what we're going to do in the day. And she says, so I got meetings and blah blah blah. So she'll go upstairs to her office. I'll come down to the bunker here, Studio Irrenhaus, I call it. And Irrenhaus is German for nut house. So I've got a sign in front of the door, like coming in, Irrenhaus. So it's a madhouse. We're all mad here. So we'll carry on, and then around noon, she'll just yell down the stairs, "Hey, do you want to grab some lunch?" I'm like, "Yeah, just hang on a sec. You know, I'm just finishing up this mix," or, you know, "Ah, crap, you just blew my vocal take." So we spend entire days with that kind of an interaction, and then the evening we get together, have dinner together, and then we spend the evening hanging out together. Unless I'm so in the zone where it's like, okay, I need to be by myself this evening, and so I'm going down to the studio, the bunker. I'm going down to Irrenhaus to cut vocals, to do some mixing, to finish up a video I've been working on or whatever, and call it a day. So like some days just disappear into the ether, and other times I come down here and I stare blankly at the computer screen. It's like, I got nothing. I got nothing. I got nothing today. You know, I'll just listen to what I recorded last week. It's like, that sounds kind of cool. I still got nothing. I'll listen to the other tune. So I play that tune, listen to it. That sounds great. I don't know where I'm going with this. So you find yourself coming back. You have dry spells, hot spells, you know, where you've got a big sprint of creativity, and other times where you're languishing in front of the computer. It's like, oh, it's painful. Fuck it. I'm going upstairs to pet the cat.
Yeah, I gotta understand that. So I was gonna say Nut House. I would have thought Madhouse would probably be more fitting, but then I think it'd be copying the Anthrax's song. It's a Madhouse. So yeah. Even that, you probably should have named it like the Eagle's Nest or something. So. But it's a good choice nonetheless here too. But leading to this one right here, I guess. What do you think of like social media and AI these days? 'Cause it seems like it's really taken up a whole lot of the feed, to be honest, if you know what I mean, in terms of Facebook.
Yeah. For me, like social media is important to stay in touch, and I only got involved in social media because I was an Air Force brat, and I found it was a great way to get in touch with all these people and that I'd gone to school with as a youngster, who had been moved from every coast of Canada. And like Canada is a very big country, and to find people that you went to school with is arduous if you've had that military upbringing background where everybody's been moved from Europe to Canada to this province or that province. So I used it as a tool to find people. When I got Neuroshock happening, it became very useful to promote the band. Firstly, among the friends that I had, I could say, hey, I'm making weird music, so if you want to check it out, please do. Like, here's a link to my YouTube video for my latest weirdness. Check it out. Much later on, it became obvious that there was a really, really interesting and a very supportive community of other musicians on social media, in particular Facebook, which has been really, really great for me because I don't reach out easily because I'm an introvert. So I typically hide in my basement. But it's so much easier from the comfort of your phone to just scroll through and they're promoting bands, so here's my band. How many people are in your band? Just me, but here's my music and check it out, blah blah blah. So it's been extremely useful for me to put out my music, but more importantly, I would say that social media has been important for me to become part of a community, which is something that I've been lacking ever since I got Neuroshock started in the depths of the COVID lockdown. So it's been really great for me, social media. My biggest regret with social media is that the feed, more often than not, it's like some random person saying, hey, look, I've got a nice rack. Check them out. Or some guy, I've got this big truck and I'm going to drive over a car. Or look at me, I'm doing another stupid trick, like I've just set my house on fire. Isn't that great? And it's like, where are all these bands that I'm following? And where is all these, music, podcasters like yourself? Where is their stuff? Well, I want to see their stuff. And it's so hard to get in there to drill down into the stuff that I want to see versus, suggested, you should follow, or, the thing that I love seeing is a notification saying lots of people are commenting on this popular post. And it's like, oh, that's great. Somebody's dog is trying to have sex with a cow's leg at some barnyard in Norway. How lovely. Yes, I'm very interested. I should comment on this immediately. Oh, and here's a link to my music if you care. It's so inane and banal and so daft. It defies words. As far as AI goes, I think it's still very much in its infancy. So I think in a few years' time, when we see AI graphics the way they are now, the sort of state of the art, whether it's Mid-Journey or some of the more advanced ones, or even some of the more primitive ones, we're going to see it as being very primitive, where we have AI created people with the 10-finger single hands and weird glitches, all that kind of stuff, right? And it's like, AI, primitive AI. It's also troubling with all the deep fake stuff that they can do now. And as my album Mechanical Empath alludes to, troubling in that AI could easily be programmed to emulate a therapist for somebody who might be in need of some real therapy. and be led down that path. If there's so much uncertainty. I think at this point, it's still in its infancy, but let's just hope that people use this technology for good and not super villains to try to take over the world where we need a James Bond to put an end to it, kind of thing.
I guess that would make a good action movie if they wanted to at some point. So,
calling dibs on that screenplay.
Gotta jump on that bandwagon. So, actually, I was curious. Is Canada trying to address AI? I don't know if they're trying to do anything in terms of Canadian government trying to intervene, say like the usage of what it should be for. Are they doing anything like that?
I think the usual comment from our politicians is we're keeping an eye on it, which means they don't know how to handle it. They don't know what they're going to do with it, and they're at least talking, which is great. But I hope that people don't just kind of shit can it and hope for the best, because that's not the kind of technology that responds well to being shit canned and hoping for the best, because it's a Pandora's box, a lot of crazy ass shit. Anybody who's seen the Terminator and Skynet from Cyberdyne Systems knows what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, that could be like a Matrix situation involving Nex. So.
Yeah, man, I don't want to be in the Matrix. I don't want to become a copper top.
No, but at least then we would know our steak would be nice and juicy too. So.
I should have taken the blue pill.
Sadly, yeah. Okay. But nonetheless, let's tread carefully. So we'll see what happens.
Yes.
I guess some of the stuff you had mentioned so far in this interview here too, I guess. What sort of advice would you give to those musicians on social media? Because that's actually how I found out about you. I actually interacted with one of your posts. I want to say it was the Burlos Band. I think that's where I found you.
Okay.
So what sort of advice, that was kind of linked to that question, what advice would you give to musicians on social media and maybe any in your neck of the woods?
Yeah. I guess I'm not a sage. I'm not this guy with this big wealth of experience to draw on to give sage advice to people. But one thing I would say is, if you can find something in the music thing that you're really passionate about, follow it, and don't worry about what other people are saying. Once you get to that point where you're doing the thing that you really, really enjoy doing and you love it, and you're posting your stuff on social media, and you've got your music on Spotify and all this stuff, don't get wound up on all the numbers. Like, you have 5 million monthly listeners, or you have 3 monthly listeners. Just keep doing your own thing and stay the course, and try not to let numbers dictate who you are. I think it can be kind of dehumanizing at times, especially this time of year when Spotify does their adverts / analytics and says you've done a great year. You've played 6 million times, or you've played like 2.5 times, and you've made a nickel out of the music streaming revenue that you've gotten from Spotify. How lovely for you. I see all that stuff, and I it's just like, yeah, okay, whatever, just move on from it. But I know that a lot of people get pretty down about it, and you shouldn't. My numbers aren't great on Spotify, and I think because a lot of people are moving away from Spotify to other streaming platforms that are in the music community, because the royalties are better, the audio fidelity is better, and so on. But I think the idea is I would say to these people, don't let it define you. Don't let it grind you down. Like, just stay true to your music, and listen to your friends, what they're saying, and listen to your own music and trust your heart. I think that's what I would say about that.
Yeah, it's all good points there too. In other words, don't focus on the numbers. So it's mainly just do what you do. That's all you gotta do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for sharing there. Right.
Yeah.
So Ben, we briefed through the questions here pretty good. So here, let's jump into the fun ones. Ready?
Okay.
Okay. I think we're getting a little delay, but it's all good. All right. For the first question right here, what would you say is currently your favorite food? I'm actually curious. Is there a specific Winnipeg dish that we don't know about?
Specific Winnipeg. Winnipeg's famous for pierogies, and I really like pierogies, especially fried with onions, bacon, and a couple of eggs. But my favorite food are like Italian foods. I'm just an absolute whore for rigatoni with calabrese sausage. I also really like food from my home country, Switzerland. I like schnitzel with like cheese spätzle along with it. We call it Schnitzel und Käseknöpfli in Swiss dialect. And it's just a big, cheesy, greasy mess that's absolutely delicious, topped with fried onions, and you wash it back with beer. It's heavenly. I love it. Absolutely love that. But I love just about any kind of food. In fact, it's easier to say what foods I hate. And I really don't like beets and salmon. That's it. Everything else I'll pretty much eat.
Oh, you're tough on the salmon. I was going to say we had this nice little salmon dish, but it puts crab meat in the middle of it with like little shrimp. So
perfect.
Nice.
That sounds good. And it's not like I won't eat. Yeah, it's not like I won't eat salmon. I just prefer other fish.
Fair enough. I would say that Wiener Schnitzel you were talking about actually sounds pretty interesting because I just had the breaded form. I mean, there were a couple times they maybe put like a special sauce on there too, but yours had like fried onions, all the other stuff too, and German craft beer.
Yes. Yeah, it's awesome.
Just real quick, how do you pronounce it again?
Sorry?
The Schnitzel, how do you pronounce it again?
Schnitzel mit Käseknöpfli.
Käseknöpfli. Okay. I was going to say, I don't think I did learn in German. I know I took some German in high school, but then it became a lost art after I went to college. So,
well, this is what I'm speaking is a Swiss dialect from the area where my dad is from, and it's guttural. It sounds like Klingon, like from Star Trek. It's just it's a very guttural language.
Always learn something new, so that's pretty cool. Okay. For the next question right here, what would you say is currently your favorite movie? And if you have a favorite TV series, feel free to share.
One of my favorite movies is the reimagination of the Dune movies, Dune 1 and Dune 2. I've become a big fan of Denis Villeneuve as a director. He did Blade Runner 2049, and he's got this big, broad, like epic vision for making films, which I find absolutely mind blowing. It gives me goosebumps to watch these films. They're that good for me. As far as TV shows, I've been on a steady diet of some older TV shows that I've been revisiting. Lately, I've been watching The Sopranos. I love these old mafia films and mafia series. And I found this obscure TV show on Crave called Project Blue Book. They only did 2 seasons and it got canceled. But it's pretty trippy stuff. It's kind of like a 1950s version of the X-Files, but no monsters. It's all UFO stuff. It's really kind of cool. It's right up my alley. And as far as older films, one of my favorites, especially this time of year, my Christmas film isn't Die Hard. My Christmas film is The Thing, which I'm going to be watching.
You just consider that a Christmas movie because it's in a winter setting in Antarctica. So
yeah, totally. It's like looking out my front window.
Can't see much of a difference. So all right, fair enough. That's the first time I heard someone mention The Thing as like a Christmas movie. Actually, we all get nihilistic at the end there too. So I mean, that seems to be what as what Craig would say. Yeah. So actually, I'm surprised most people would say Die Hard is a Christmas movie, but I guess it was because there was a released. I thought they said Christmas Eve or one of those days before Christmas.
It takes place right around the Christmas season, so there's a Christmas element to it. But yeah, for me, it's always been The Thing. I don't know why. But I think maybe because of the snow.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Yeah, with a flamethrower.
Yep. All right. Great choices there nonetheless there too. So now for the next question right here, I don't know if you drink any alcohol, but if you do, what's your favorite alcoholic drink? And then what's your favorite non-alcoholic drink?
I'm a big fan of alcohol. I like wine and beer mostly, but I indulge in spirits as well. My favorite wine, I had a bottle of Alex Corton Burgundy this summer while I was reading Geddy Lee's autobiography called My Effin' Life. And I thought about that wine because he was drinking Burgundies with Alex and Neil when they were touring. And so I thought, I'm going to have a glass of this stuff too. And I thought, oh man, this is just perfect. Like, it's a perfect summer day. And I'm drinking this fantastic Burgundy, reading this really, really great book. If you haven't read it, I recommend it. It's really quite good. Even for a non-musician, it's a very interesting read, especially if you like the band Rush too. For beer, I typically gravitate towards IPAs. I like my beers fairly hoppy, but not over the top hoppy. My favorite lager is Pilsner Urquell from Czech Republic. I think it's the original Pilsner beer. It's from the town Pilsen in Czech Republic. And to me, it personifies the perfect color, the perfect balance, the perfect mouthfeel, the perfect effervescence, and it's the perfect all-rounder beer for me. I also really enjoy an American beer called Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, which I think is absolutely brilliant. And from the East Coast of the United States, I really like Dogfish Head's beers. Those are really quite interesting too. I'm a big fan of those. For spirits, I'm a big cognac fan. I like Remy Martin VSOP, to be specific. I also like apple brandy called Calvados from the Normandy region of France, which is perfect this time of year when it's cold outside and it's getting close to Christmas and you're sitting by the fire. I like to have a bit of that. And I'm also a big Scotch fan. I like those really stinky Islay malts that they smell like a campfire / tire fire nastiness. I really, really like those. So I like Lagavulin and Ardbeg and Beaumont and all those really salty, iodine-y, stinky whiskeys. Big fan of those.
I'd say, man, you should start a brewery next. So
maybe so.
I mean, hey, he knows his beer and all that stuff there too. I mean, I didn't know we were giving like an assortment list right there. So that's pretty cool. Actually, a whole lot of them I had not actually heard about. I normally keep my selection pretty minimal, so I'm pretty minimalistic when it comes to beer or any sort of alcohol. But then again, I'm mostly a social drinker. Would you say you're also a social drinker? Do you and the wife indulge every now and again?
My wife and I, when I buy beer, I usually buy 2 cans of each kind of beer, so there's no fighting. And so we'll both try the beer and we'll both talk about it. And we have our favorites. Like I like to have a Guinness with shepherd's pie. I like to have Guinness with a stew. I like to have my Pilsner Urquell with a hamburger and fries, that kind of thing. But I also like trying different kinds of beer. Like I hate having just one choice in the fridge for beer. I like a variety because I have different moods and different desires when it comes to beer, especially in the summer. So if you look at my beer fridge just outside, like if you walk out of the studio and down the hall, there's a beer fridge, and it's just a huge pile of different kinds of beer, from IPAs to stouts to lagers to ales to you name it. There's just a ton in there, and it's so nice to have that selection. Very happy to have that.
As I say, your next job should be a wine connoisseur instead, if you can get away with it. So,
if you go that way down the hall, there's a bit of a cellar where there's a big selection of wines and spirits too. So, really, my bunker is well equipped.
Do tell. All right. So, great choice.
It's a Winnipeg.
It's a Winnipeg thing. We have to store up for the winter. We hibernate now.
That's right.
Yeah, great choices there, nonetheless. And for the final question, what would you say is currently your favorite song? Could be either mainstream or in the independent community.
Right now, and it's not a new song. My favorite song is "Outside" by the band The Fix. It's on their "Reach the Beach" album, and it's very sparse, very very powerful, emotional tune. I really quite like it. Which brings to mind another track from another very unlikely. I really, really loved the cover of Nine Inch Nails' "Hurt" by Johnny Cash. when Johnny Cash did that cover, unbelievable, like just absolutely, absolutely unbelievable. What a great tune. What a totally great tune. So there's that. So those are two that come to mind straight away. I've been chewing through Bill Leeb's solo album called Model Collapse. I think he's the guy from Frontline Assembly. He's got a brand new album, a solo album. So I've been chewing through that and enjoying it quite a bit. But I couldn't name a track that I like as a favorite just yet. So I don't know. And I'm because I'm in the studio quite often listening to my own noise. I don't get a chance to listen to a whole lot of new music and don't have a lot of time to listen to other people's playlists, regrettably. But I'm hoping that when I'm done with the recording and mixing of Mechanical Empath album, that I'll have time to sit down and actually listen to other people's music, because there's so much really, really good stuff out there from other independent artists like, Subtlety and Barker and Feminoise and like all these bands that are out there that they're just brilliant. Arcane Synthetic, like just such great bands that I regret not having the time to sit down and listen to them all as much as I should. But like I said, I'm hoping that, and I'm not going to commit to this, I'm hoping that by March I'll have released Mechanical Empath and I'll be able to sit down and let my record do its own thing, and I'll be able to listen to other people's music till my heart's content. So there's that.
That'd be wishful thinking, but we'll have to see what happens. So can't wait to hear it there, bud.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we'll see what happens, but good luck out there. And a great choice for the songs. Though I would have to say, as soon as you said Johnny Cash is hurt, I was thinking back to when Trent Reznor said, "It's not my song anymore." So.
Right. Yeah, how true is that?
Very true.
Yeah, absolutely.
May he rest in peace. I'm just saying we lost Johnny Cash, so may he rest easy. All right. So, Ben, we're down to one more question in my podcast right here, but before we jump into it, would you like to ask me any questions or say any final words before we jump into it?
No, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to sit down with you and talk about Mechanical Empath and my music and what I do and all that kind of thing. It's been a hoot. It's been great. Thank you.
Likewise. I would say it's a good thing you actually posted that reply, and then I was able to get to you through Messenger there too, so it all worked out in the end. So.
Yes.
Right. But there's no other questions. Here's how the last one goes. So, given what COVID has done, I know I've had a good number of stories in my interviews where they said people have lost family, friends, and all that stuff here too. So I'm sorry to hear that they're made. But for those musicians and people who perhaps went through something similar you went through, or perhaps are dealing with anything else in their lives like an addiction, what sort of message of hope could you give to those musicians and people as we try to move forward with our lives?
Yeah, I'm probably the wrong person to ask that question, because when I spiraled down pretty hard with the deaths in the family and all that kind of thing. But what pulled me through was contact with friends, spending time with friends, and trying to surround yourself with positive, like-minded people. I think there's a lot to be said about the support you can get from that kind of thing. Have a social circle, even if you just see your friends occasionally, every month or so, every year, whatever. The fact that you're in contact with them and that you can talk with them and even sit down, have a beer, and shoot the shit and have a few laughs can go a long, long way to getting you into a better headspace. And I don't know, like I have some friends where when I'm feeling kind of down and you hang out with them and you have a few beers and you've been laughing so hard your face hurts and you've had that whatever that hormone's called, dopamine or whatever, the relaxing whatever. You come home after spending some time with them and you feel absolutely great. You feel energized and wonderful, and that's what I would say to people who are in a bad headspace, is seek out people who are kind and positive people, and non-judgmental people, who can hear you for who you are and accept you for who you are, and be there for you. That's the best thing I could possibly suggest.
Spoken like a true prodigy. So I I can imagine it's tough for people who are pretty introverted to try to say any sort of message because I'm an introvert too, so I tend to keep my friend circle a little small. So I can see what you mean. It's hard to try to give the advice where it really matters the most, but it's like, hey, we're as introverts, we tend to improvise, and then we try to roll with it, and then try to find our way, as I like to say. So
Yeah.
definitely. Thank you so much for sharing it too.
That's been very thought provoking. Definitely, I mean, you really have to do a little soul searching to, understand where you were in your headspace and what made you get through it. And that's the first thing that came to my mind was just, friends and positive energy. As hokey as that sounds.
That's a good point. Yeah. So good on you, mate, and good to see you made it through. So good to have you along here for the ride.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
All right. So, Ben, we reached the end of my podcast right here. We talked about an hour and 40 some minutes, but I guess, would you like to say any more final words? Any shout outs, or any promotions you want to do for your new album coming out?
No, other than my album's going to be, like I said, I'm not going to, I'm aiming for a March release for Mechanical Empath. Until then, I've got the Reactance Bias and Oblivion 1981 for people to listen to. And when you get bored of listening to my music, there's so much other great music out there. Other Winnipeg artists, like I mentioned earlier, Lost Cause Industry, and Prime Phase Principle, and Plains Desperate Symphony. And of course, all these other guys from all over the world, like Arcane Synthetic, and my God, there's just so many. When you're doing this, you know what you're thinking of, but you can't articulate it well enough. Or there's just so many out there that I wish I could remember them all. But they're in my thoughts, and I really appreciate that they're there. And I think everybody should give a listen to their music and give them the support they deserve.
I guess the retrospect is going to be shout out to everybody that I've interacted with, as well as listen to music. So
thank you. You bailed me out of my awkward moment. A shout out to everybody. Everybody, you're doing great.
It's circle E, all the above. So yeah. All right.
Yes. At followers, at everyone. There you go. Done.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just real quick, are you planning to maybe do any shows in around Winnipeg, or you just mainly gonna just move on to the next album after you're done with this newer one coming out?
Well, that's an interesting question because when I went to see Frontline Assembly at the Burt Theater here in Winnipeg, I noticed that they were doing a lot of their music from older albums, and they sounded just like they would have sounded on the album. And I noticed that Reese Fulber, their keyboard guy, had a laptop and so. Long story short, it became evident to me that they were using a lot of backing tracks and stuff like that, augmented by a guitar player, drummer, and Billy doing the vocals as the tune went along. And it occurred to me, how hard would it be to do something like that, to have a laptop with some backing tracks and stuff, and kind of flesh it out as a live performance the way Frontline Assembly did, and still have some street cred as a live act. So there is that. So I would say never, but getting an introvert out of the basement is sometimes a pretty tall order.
We'll have to see, but I'll leave it up to you. But if you do come out of your shell, good luck out there, mate. So close out like this. Everyone, my guest today was Ben Rusch, hailing from the lovely city of Winnipeg. It's obviously freezing out there, probably a nice little competition with Siberia in terms of the coldness, but he's chilled out in his igloo right now, but he's part of his own little group called Neuroshock. So make sure you go hit him up on socials, go see him on all streaming platforms, and keep your eyes out this coming March for his new work, Mechanical Empath. And actually sent me a song here too. I should talk about that, but won't spoil anything here just yet. But we'll close out right there. So Ben, thank you again so much again for coming on. So you stay safe because it is a crazy world out there. Rock on. And ain't opposed. Stay tuned, y'all.
Thank you.